So we do have the question of the week. Make sure you utilize that hashtag KTCO and answer the question of the week. And this week's question of the week, Biz Filings question of the week, happens to be, how do you know when it's time to take on additional staff? Chris, Joe, guys, kind of give me the nuts and bolts of this one and your thoughts.
Well, Joe and I are going to have different answers. I run a very small business. I believe very strongly in Felix Dennis, his book, How to Get Rich. One of his things was overhead walks on 2 feet. If you overstaff, you just run the risk of chewing up all your revenue and running into a problem where you have to let people go. I had to do that last year. It was the most painful thing I've had to do yet in my business career. Letting really quality people go who wasn't any fault of their own. I just had run out of runway. So I think the answer is take on staff when you can actually continue to keep them fed. Take on staff when you are running into service and support issues. And I guess that's sort of my take on it, is just on that sort of low and less than official way. But Joe, you must have like matrices for this kind of a thing. How do you do it?
You're right. I do have matrices. However, your answer is also a big part of it. When there is a service problem, when there's something I'm not able to handle that comes up every single day, that's one of the places I look to immediately. All right, am I really staffing this as efficiently as I possibly can? There's a number of guests per server during a serving night. There's a number of guests per staff in an event space. So there are formulas that we use for sure. But when it comes to, and I'll use the example of adding another manager or bringing someone in promotionally who we haven't had on staff, we're using a backwards payroll formula to say, okay, if my goal is to keep our management staff under 10% of our gross labor expense, then I know for every single staff member that I add at that management level, they should be responsible for 10-fold their cost in revenue. And that same formula even applies for us. Here, you're going to take on an advertising expense to drive an event because, again, you end up applying those same ratios. But ultimately, it is it's really, as much as you thought our answers might be different, our answers are really quite the same. That's how I'm identifying whether or not we need that extra staff, if there's some pain that we need to solve. Sarah, I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about this because you wrote a small tome when we talked about it before the show. So talk about because your model different than Chris's and mine as well. How do you know when you're needing to take on extra staff?
Well, in a perfect world, I would be adding staff in order to support business that I've already posted. Okay, closed business, what I know is coming down the pipe. But we find ourselves in situations where we very well may win a piece of business, but it's pretty cutthroat around here. In Milwaukee, we've got some amazing talent across the board, right? And there are some agencies that make the mistake of really bulking up in anticipation of winning a large RFP, and they feel like they are 99% there, and then they don't win it, and then they're screwed, right? And so I try not to do that, although I have to be kind of forward-thinking and be able to support my clients. It's a delicate balance. Some of the things that I do is to make sure that in addition to billable time, all of my resources are assigned to other business directives, and those are already mapped out and planned so that they could switch to something that I think will either drive more business quickly or getting around to those things that I know is good for maintaining a healthy business, but I don't always get a chance to do it. So it's tricky. It just is. And when I do add, I do have very specific goals for each body. Each body has to be a percent. I have to know that I can make them a percentage billable every month. If I don't feel like I have that, I need to reassess the whole thing.
Sorry.
Stop it, Chris Brogan. No.
Done it.
I have to reassess the workload and probably re-traffic it. And maybe we aren't working efficiently enough. So I look at it as, do I know I can keep this person to a certain percentage billable? If not, I probably need to look at other ways.